Hey guys, this is Chris coming to you from Bordeaux, France, and today we're going to be taking an interesting question that we got from a supporting church yesterday. As many of you know, we are workers with the Christian and Missionary Alliance. That means we have a host of supporting churches stateside that make all of our ministry here in France a possibility. And yesterday we were meeting with one of those churches, and one of the members, the worship leader of that church, asked a really great question. I think it's a question that sort of encapsulates what it means to do ministry here. And so this is what it was. He asked point blank, so how many people have you seen get saved in the time that you guys have been there? And as always, this question puts me back a little bit because we're working in France. France is not super open to anything religious. France is not super positive towards anything religious. As many of you have seen in some of our previous updates and some of the things that we've done, they're actually putting laws on the books to make it harder to do any religious work here at all. They're doing this in the name of fairness, and so they're equally attacking every religion when they do this. So it's not like it's singling out Protestants, but it does make work here kind of difficult. And so when he asked, how many people have you guys seen come to faith? The answer is, well, what does that mean? Every context in every country that you go to is going to be different, and the way that people come to follow Jesus is going to be a little bit different in each of those places. And so when I asked the clarifying question of, well, what does that mean? He said, well, how many people have said the words? Because in a lot of ways there is a predisposition of like, well, that's the scoreboard. The scoreboard is, well, you get people to say the magic words, and once they say the magic words, they're in. And then we, that's the touchdown, that's the home run, that's the thing we want to drive the number up. And that is one way of looking at it. I mean, from a brass tacks point of view, as we're looking at specific things and trying to figure out what it is that we measure and what it is that we want to do, getting people to say the words is important. But the order that comes to for people is very often different. And so my follow-up question to that is, okay, so if saying the magic words is important, what happens when somebody says them with their mouth, but then with their actions shows that those words haven't really sunk down into their heart? Because that's an option too, right? Like you look at your own life, you could look at, well, I can look at mine. I said the words when I was 10. I remember the day, I remember the time, I remember where I was. But from the time that I was 17 to 21, those words meant nothing to me. And so this statement, I believe XYZ, was something that I still would have affirmed during that time, even though they didn't really mean anything to me, and to the way that I actually lived my life was kind of irrelevant. And what we've seen here as we've been doing work in France for the last 6 years is that saying the words is often the last step that people will take. The way that we've seen it work is we've seen people belong first, then start to behave, and then in one instance, at very long last, we've seen someone admit to belief. But there's a lot of other people that we're working with who are in that belonging phase, or they're in that life change, behavioral change phase. And they're just not ready to say the words yet. And that's okay. I think at the end of the day, the real scorecard, the thing that is our way of tracking points is, are we doing the things that God has asked us to do? Are we being obedient to who He's asked us to be? My answer to that is yeah, we are. To the best of our ability and to the best of our discernment, we're doing the things that we feel like God has asked us to do. And we are seeing people march along this path and even starting to follow Jesus before admitting that Jesus is Lord, which is weird. But it's also part of the CMA core values in that we have a fourfold gospel, that we believe Jesus is Savior, and that's the saying the words part. But we also believe He's healer. And as you look at the Bible, there's many times that somebody gets healed first and believes second. And we're starting to see some of that too. We We also believe that Jesus is sanctifier, meaning that he changes the way we live. That in walking the road with him, the way we walk changes. And we've seen people do that too. And we also believe that Jesus is the king who's coming again, which means there's a way that the church, society, government, all working together brings the kingdom here, but not yet. And in answering the question, well, how many people have said the words? The answer is one. But when you start adding in all these other phases, yeah, we've seen people healed. And now there's people that believe Jesus is healer. And that's great. And we've seen people change the way that they live because they've been exposed to just a different way of living. And so they're seeing Jesus as sanctifier. They're seeing that following the Jesus way adds something to their lives and to the lives of the people around them. And there's even people saying that, well, if we hold up these values, if we do the things that Jesus says, like the world gets better. And so while I don't think we have a ton of people who are necessarily ready and right on the edge of saying the thing, it doesn't mean that there's not fruit. It doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities that we have and continue to have to announce the gospel in its fullness, which is a lot more than just saying a few words that don't sink down into your heart. Thanks. Till next time. Bye.